Good morning, student. Today we are going to learn our new chapter from Pact with the Sun, chapter number 3, The Shepherd's Trestle. Let's learn. This is an Iranian folk story and this is a very interesting story. So let's start the story. In a village in Iran, there once lived a shepherd. He was very poor. He did not have even a small cottage of his own. He had never been to school or learned to read and write, for there were very few schools in those days. Now this is a story of a poor shepherd. So it took place in Iran, a small village of Iran. So a poor shepherd lived in Iran. He was so poor that he didn't have a small cottage, small house to live. Because of less number of schools during those days, he could never attend school to read and write. Though poor and uneducated, this shepherd was very wise. He understood people's sorrow and troubles and helped them face their problem with courage and common sense. Many people came to him for advice. Soon he became famous for his wisdom and friendly nature. The king that the king of that country heard about him and thought of meeting him. Now, in spite of his poverty and illiteracy, this shepherd was very wise. He was able to understand people's pain and often helped them to solve their problems, their issues with courage and wisdom. Face their problem means with a lot of courage and bravery, with a boldness. He make the people to fight with their problem with a lot of courage and wisdom. People used to visit him to find suggestions and solutions. Because of this ability, he became very popular. His popularity reached the king as well as he thought of meeting him. Disguised as a shepherd and riding on a mule, one day the king came to the cave where the wise shepherd lived. As soon as the shepherd saw the traveler coming towards the cave, he rose to welcome him. He took the tired traveler inside the cave, gave him water to drink, and share of his own meager food. His own meager food. The king rested for the night in the cave, was very greatly impressed by the shepherd's hospitality and wise conversation. Now king thought to meet the meeting with him. So disguised as a shepherd means king just hide his uh, dressed as a shepherd and hiding his true identity. Disguise means to hide original identity and dress like a poor or something. So he hiding his true identity. The king reached the shepherd's cave on a mule. Mule means an animal which is not horse or not donkey. It is offspring of horse and donkey. So the king reached on a mule. One day the king came to cave where the shepherd lived. So dressed as a shepherd and hiding his true identity, the king reached the shepherd's cave on a mule. The moment the shepherd noticed him coming to his cave, he got up and greet him. He got up and greet him. He brought the traveler inside his cave and gave him water and food. Meager food means a poor food. It is less in quantity and quality. Okay, meager means less in quantity and quality. He have a very poor food, but he shared it with king and did good hospitality. Now the king took rest as he was tired, so he took rest and stay with him for the night in the cave. The king was impressed by friendly, warm, and very good hospitality. The king was very impressed by his friendly, warm, and good hospitality, and his words of wisdom was very, very nice. So he was totally impressed by the shepherd. Though still tired, the king decided to depart the next morning. He said, "Many thanks for your kindness to the poor traveler. I have a long way to go. Permit me to leave." Looking straight into the eyes of his guest, the shepherd replied, "Thank you, Your Majesty, for paying me the compliment of a visit." Now, though the king was still feeling very tired, yet he decided to leave from the place. The very next morning, he expressed his gratitude. He expressed his gratitude means very thankful behavior. He just expressed his gratitude, very thank you towards the shepherd. He expressed his gratitude to the poor shepherd for his warm and kind welcome. Now the king sought his permission to leave the place because he wanted to go far away, because he was king. Without him the palace and the court were incomplete, so he just sought his permission. Just give me permission, I want to leave for my home. The shepherd addressed him as Your Majesty, and looking straight into his eyes and expressed his gratitude. Now this is the turn of shepherd to talk something. Then shepherd said, "Thank you, Majesty. Thank you, Your Majesty." Now king was very astonished. He was very surprised. The shepherd straight looked into king's eyes and said that, "Thank you, Majesty. Thank you, my Majesty, for." And the king was astonished because the shepherd thanked him and addressed him as a king. So, although he rose, sorry, the king was astonished as well as pleased. He is indeed very wise. He thought to himself, "I need people like him to work for me." And the king appointed this humble shepherd the governor of a small district. Now, when the shepherd was thanked to the king for give a chance to hospitality, the king was understand very well. He was able to understand he was such a wise person. With a very small conversation, with a very small talk, he understood that I am the king. So he was such a wise man, and the king was astonished. Astonished means surprise. Astonished का मतलब है surprise. Now the king was wondering and was full of joy to hear his words. He thought that the shepherd was actually very wise, and the people like him, the people who are very wise, were the need of the king, and they are the need of the king, because this kind of person work in a palace, so it is good for him. Work with the ministry, it is very good for him. So he must work for the king, and the king made him the governor of a small district. Although he rose to power and dignity, the shepherd remained as humble as ever. People loved and honored him for his wisdom, sympathy, and goodness. He was kind and just to one and all. His fame as a fair and wise governor soon spread throughout the country. Now, in spite of all the power and dignity, all the power and dignity, he rose as a very big man. He rose means he rise. He was he became very powerful man. Rose to power means became very powerful man, because he became a governor now. He is yet very splendid. As he rose with power and dignity, he became very powerful man. The shepherd remained as humble as he was. He was never changed. The people loved him. The shepherd remained humble and very cool. People liked him and were full of appreciation for his wisdom and kindness. His behavior was just to everyone. His behavior was very just to everyone. He became popular as good and wise governor. Now he became very popular in the country. Throughout the country, he became very popular. His spread out his name and fame everywhere. Uh, Now the governor of other provinces grew terribly jealous of him and began to talk to the king against him. They said he is very dishonest and kept for him part of the money that he collected as tax from the people. Why did he always carry with him, they added, an iron chest? Perhaps he carried in it the treasure that he had secretly collected. After all, they said mockingly, he was an ordinary shepherd and could behave no better. Now, as he became very powerful and very popular among the people, the other governor of other states, provinces matlab states, the governor of other state developed jealousy for him. They burned him with jealousy. They started speaking against him to the king. They started calling him dishonest and blamed him. And they blame him to keeping part of the tax money with him. They even posed questions over his iron chest, which he carried always with him. They said that it had all the treasure he collected secretly. They made fun of him. Mockingly means made a fun of him. What made a fun of him? Which kind of fun they made? Yes, he's a very poor shepherd. After all, he's behaved like that. He never seen such a big amount of money and such a gold and silver. That's why he's collecting secretly everything. He was just take a bribe from everywhere. वो सबसे रिश्वत लेता है and all the rubbish. Because he was a very common man, so we expected from him this kind of dishonesty. They are just mockingly say that. उस पर हंसने लगे, मजाक उड़ाने लगे. At first, the king did not pay attention to this report. But how long could he ignore these governors and their endless stories about the shepherd? One thing was certain, the king discovered. The new governor did carry an iron chest with him all the time. So one day the new governor was summoned to the palace. He came riding on his camel, and to everyone's delight, the famous iron chest was there, fastened securely behind him on the camel's back. Now the king was angry. He thundered, "Why do you always carry the iron chest with you? What does it contain?" Now, at last, initially the king paid no attention to such words, but gradually he had to such words, but gradually he did not believe that the governor carried an iron chest with him. He secretly made a spy on him, and he found that the another governor, the governor of other provinces, were right. He always carried an iron chest with him. He thought that he must inquire about the reason for carrying an iron chest with him. Why he was carrying all the time an iron chest with him? I must inquire about it. So one day, the new governor was summoned, was called. Summoned means officially called. Officially called to the palace. King ने बुलावा भेजा. Officially called to the palace. He came riding on his camel, and everyone's surprised. He was feeling. Thus the king called the new governor to the palace, and he came on his camel. Everyone was feeling joy as the most talked about iron chest was fastened, means tied. Means tied, उसके पीछे बंधा हुआ था. Tied, fastened means tied. Chest was tied behind him on the camel's back. Seeing this, the king shouted. The king thundered. Thundered means shouted in anger. The king was thundered. The king was shouted in anger, and asked him the reason for carrying the iron chest with him. What is this, and why are you carrying it always with you? What it contained? Answer me. The governor smiled. Asked his The governor smiled. He asked his servant to bring in the chest. How eagerly the people standing around awaited for the shepherd to be found out. But how great was their astonishment, and even of the king himself, when the chest was opened. No gold or no silver, all jewels, but an old blanket was all that came out. Holding up proudly, the shepherd said, "This, my dear master, is my only treasure. I always carry it with me." Now the king was very angry, and he was shouted on the new governor. The governor was very calm, very cool. He just smiled to the king and asked his attendant, means asked his servant, to bring that chest in the palace. And all the people were very curious. They were very astonishment means they were very curiously, they were eagerly, very curiously, they were just waiting to see what it had inside. But when it was open, they found no precious gold, no silver, no money, but an old blanket. The shepherd took it in his hands with proud and explained to the king, "That is my treasure, my majesty. This is my treasure." "But why do you carry such an ordinary blanket with you? Surely you are the governor of a district," the king asked. To which the shepherd replied with quiet dignity, "This blanket is my oldest friend. It will still protect me at any time your majesty should wish to take away my new clothes." Now, but the king was very curious. He was very eager to uh, find out the reason for carrying such an old blanket. To which the shepherd replied, the shepherd was replied with very dignity and very proud. He felt very proud holding the old blanket, and he just replied with very proudful moment, very quiet dignity, means silent grace, एक respect के साथ, एक grace के साथ, he just answered to the king that the blanket was my oldest friend. In times of need, it would protect me. When I was poor, it was protect me, and when my majesty and my king, if you wish to take all my royal clothes, means the clothes का मतलब यहाँ पे है royal clothes. If you want to take all my royal clothes back, that the blanket was dear to me. You could not snatch it from me, because it is my timeless friend. It is my best friend in poverty, in royalty, and it was protect me. It will protect me. So I always carry it with me. It just make me reminded from where I am, how pleased the king was, how pleased the king was, and how embarrassed the jealous governor became to hear the wise man's reply. Now they knew that the shepherd was indeed the humblest and wisest man in the land. The king made him the governor of a much bigger district that very day. Now the king felt very happy to hear his words. King also felt proud that I choose such a correct person for my state, and my choice is really a gem. मैंने सच में स्टार पसंद किया है अपने किंगडम के लिए. And the other governor was feeling very embarrassed. Very embarrassment means they felt shame. Now it was clear to everyone that the shepherd was the humblest and the wisest man of the land. They all know he is the humblest and wisest man. Feeling proud of him, the king was very pleased, very happy, and when the king was very happy, he gave something to the people. So the king, feeling very proud of the governor, and the king gave him a bigger district to look after. at the very time, at the on the spot, he make him a governor of bigger district. So this was our story. Hope you like the story, kids, and in the next session we will talk about our next story. Till then, bye, take care.